We're going to start that conversation by navigating over to a case profile. And we, of course, get there by clicking on the case ID in our cases list view. And that will launch us into our case profile. And this is our main profile in the demo site. Every intake process will have to be directed to a profile. So by default, if I created this intake with this profile, I'm going to see this profile automatically. Profiles are typically formatted as lists of tab blocks. So by tab block, we mean a block of tabs, of course. So our first tab block on our main profile here starts with some basic information about the client. We then get into people on the case, assignments, time, etc. As I scroll down, you'll notice my second tab block on this profile starts with our client demographics tab. We then have a third block of case details, and then we've got our case notes block, and lastly, our case documents block. Your profiles in Legal Server are completely customizable by your admins, so they get to choose what tabs appear in which tab block, the order of all of the tabs, etc. And they also get to choose what shows under each tab. So what list views are we showing, what fields are we showing, for instance, under client demographics, etc. Another thing that your admins will control is what can be edited from the profile. And we have two main options for editing information on a case. The first is editable directly from the profile. And we do that by clicking on the name of the actual field. And if it is editable, it will be clickable and show as a blue link. Sometimes that will launch you into a separate form to change the value. So for gender, for instance, it's launching us into this edit applicant demographics form. And for other fields, let's try race, yes. So for other fields, you'll notice that it populates right on the profile. All I have to do is change my value, click continue right on the profile, and it will update that value of that field. The other option for editing information on a case is through your actions menu. There are some things that will always be only editable through your actions menu, through an auxiliary process. An example of that is something like editing the client name. Of course, when we add a new client name or we change the name, we want the ability to do a conflict search. So this will launch us into a two-step process, editing the client name and then showing our conflict search results and marking whether or not this is a conflict. Your site administrators will also have the option to decide what actions they want available in this actions menu. So our demo site has some extra configuration here. So we've got things like a pro bono section, a special program section, some housing forms, etc. So how this is actually set up, again, is based on the links that your admins want available. And you can change these, what links appear based on the disposition of a case. So if my case is still pending, I might not have the option for all of these. Once I close my case, I probably won't have all of these options as well, things like editing and adding more information, etc. So next we're going to talk a little bit about profile views. So as I mentioned, we typically just have a main profile that's the profile that we're all directed to, but you also have the option to view cases with other alternate profiles. And we call these profile views. Your site administrators will have to build these. They can be formatted completely different from this profile, or they can be very similar with just an extra tab. For instance, if we have a foreclosure profile view, we just want some extra information about the mortgage to show right on the profile, something to that effect. We can build whatever profile views we want. And these are going to show alternatives to the main profile. Now, on my main profile, I have a views section right next to my action section, and I can see any available profile views here. And we're just going to go ahead and click on our example, which is our foreclosure profile. Now we can see in our breadcrumbs at the top here that we're viewing this case with the foreclosure profile. It's going to look very similar to our main profile. I think the change comes down here towards the bottom. We've got an extra tab block for income and assets. But again, this could be configured however you want this particular profile view. We can also set defaults for the profile view, I should say. And the default can be based on 3 different things, 3 levels. The first thing the system will look to is if you have a user preference set for your default profile. The way that you can do that, and this is user specific, is go up to your name bubble at the top here and click on the link for system preferences. All the way at the bottom of this form, this main profile field is where you can set your default to view case profiles with. So here, if I were to select foreclosure profile for my user account, again, this is only affecting me as the logged in user, and click continue. Now, if I go back to my cases list and click on any of these cases, I'm going to automatically see this case with the foreclosure profile. So that is now my default profile each time I click on a case. I'm going to go back and reset that to auto. So if I have this set to auto, essentially I don't have any default selected for my own personal user account, it is then going to look to your user role. So this is something that your administrators would have to set up. But if we go over to our user role section and click on my user role, all the way at the bottom, we have that same field for main profile default. Again, I could select something like the foreclosure profile, and then every single user that is under this role, so in this example, administrator, would then have that as their default profile to view cases with. Typically, this option is not used so much for things like a foreclosure profile, a problem-specific type of profile, but more so for a supervisor view versus a regular user view, or if you have interns or students and want them to have a different view and different actions available, that's typically what this setting is used for. But that is the second place where Legal Server will check for a setting besides auto. And then the third thing is that you can have profiles default based on the legal problem codes. So this is also set up by your admins in the back end of your lookups. So if I come to my legal problem code lookup, each legal problem code value is going to have, again, that same field for main profile default. And this allows me to select something like, we will select 67 as our foreclosure problem code. And I can set this to foreclosure profile. And what will happen is if a user doesn't have their preferences set or their user role set, if they come to a 67 case, we'll just go ahead and filter to find one of those. So if I find all right, and apologies, we actually don't have any under that problem code. But if I were to click on a case that had the 67 problem code, I would then see that in that foreclosure profile. Again, you can set that up for as many or as few problem codes as you want to. So if you have several different profile views based on the type of case, you can set those all up based on their problem code or codes. And we can also do this with home pages. So the first two options, your user preferences or the user role, can also determine the profile that you're viewing with your home page. So we can have specific home pages, again, based on the user or based on the type of user with their role. The last thing to mention is that if you're going to use profile views, we highly suggest that you use what we call menu boxes. So if I go back to my profile, I'm going to go ahead and go to the back end of my profile so you can see the configuration. On this profile, we're using what we call menu boxes to set the actions menu. So this is what's actually determining what actions we have available on this profile. The reason we suggest to use these is because the menu box can then be reused on additional profiles. So if we have a foreclosure profile, a divorce profile, etc., and we want all of the same actions available, we can just reuse those menu boxes without having to recreate the entire actions menu. Great, and that is the end of our profiles and views section. So I'm going to go ahead and pause and check for any questions. The only question that's come in is if the recordings are available somewhere to access. We are currently working on getting videos of every topic out there. Some of these topics will already have a video on the onboarding portal and or the help site. If there's not a video out there yet, there's still great information out there on the help sites, so you can always look to that. But we are hoping to have a video available for every topic that we cover during this session. So be on the lookout for those.